Brought to you by Curtis & Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. For pre-need funerals, burials, and cremation since 1975, 256-245-4361. The North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. 256-245-4361 for pre-need to at-need funeral services, funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975. It is Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg. In obituary news this morning, Daniel Joe Reeves, age 27 of Sylacauga, died Wednesday at UAB Highlands. Fond memories and expressions of sympathy may be shared at curtisondsonfh.com. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, North Chapel, announcing the funeral arrangements for Daniel Joe Reeves, age 27 of Sylacauga. Visitation for Mary Virginia Moats, age 88, will be Saturday at 11 a.m. from Curtis & Son North, followed by a funeral service at noon in the, at the North Chapel with interment in the Highland Cemetery. Online condolences at curtisondsonfh.com. Ms. Moats passed away January 25th in Opelika. She was a longtime member of the Highlands Baptist Church. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, North Chapel, directing. Funeral service for Sarah B. Jeffcoat, age 98 of Childersburg. Funeral service will occur following the visitation at 1 o'clock today. Funeral service at 2. Interment in the Green Hill Memorial Gardens. Ms. Jeffcoat died at her residence on Tuesday, January 25th. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Childersburg Chapel, directing. Graveside service for Patsy Joyce Baker, age 78 of Sylacauga, is today at 2 o'clock from Harpersville Cemetery with Reverend Mark Deason officiating. Visitation at the North Chapel in Sylacauga of Curtis & Son. That's going to be at the Childersburg Chapel from 1 until 2 today. Childersburg Chapel visitation, and then the graveside service over at Harpersville Cemetery for Patsy Joyce Baker, age 78. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Childersburg Chapel, directing. Gary Lott, age 67 of Sylacauga, died January 21st. A private family graveside service for Gary will be held. Visitation is Sunday from 3 to 4 o'clock at Radley Smith Funeral Home in Sylacauga. Radley Smith Funeral Home, Sylacauga, directing. Funeral and burial services with military honors for Hertzine Easley, age 55, will be Monday, January 31st, 2 o'clock at Alabama National Cemetery in Montevallo with the Reverend Clint Walker, the pastor of the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, officiating. Now, due to COVID-19 protocol, including social and physical distancing guidelines, attendance is for the immediate family members only and designated close family friends. Ms. Easley died January 12th in Birmingham at the Veterans Administration Medical Center. She was a native of Alpine, a graduate of Childersburg High School, 1984. Aubrey Bouchelon funeral directing and cremation services in charge of the arrangements. Marjorie Youth Herring Martin died January the 18th at Cahaba Ridge Assisted Living Facility in Vestavia Hills. Memorial service will be 2 o'clock January the 30th at First Presbyterian Church in Talladega with the Reverend Leanne Scarborough officiating. Cremated remains will be buried in the Oak Hill Cemetery in Talladega. Ursery Funeral Home, Talladega, directing. In lieu of flowers, you might make donations to First Presbyterian Church in Talladega or to a favorite charity of your choice. Homegoing celebration, remembering the life of Mrs. Cat Twyman, age 98 of Talladega, is today at 2 o'clock from Mount Canaan Baptist Church with the Reverend Dr. Horace Patterson officiating. Interment in the Oak Hill Cemetery. S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory directing. Funeral service for Henry Earl Sasser, age 63 of Sylacauga, will be Saturday at 11 o'clock from the chapel of Radley Smith Funeral Home. Reverend Tommy Strickland officiating. Burial in the Evergreen Cemetery. Mr. Sasser died Wednesday, January 26th at his residence. He was a bus driver at one time, 20-44 for B.B. Comer Memorial School. Visitation is this evening, 6 till 8 o'clock at the funeral home, Radley Smith Funeral Home, directing. Gary Brannon Walker, age 40, of Sylacauga, died January 25th at Coosa Valley Medical Center. Visitation is today, noon until 1 o'clock at Radley Smith Funeral Home. In lieu of flowers, contributions can be sent to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, Radley Smith Funeral Home, directing. Homegoing celebration, remembering the life of Reverend Stephen Gross, age 66, of Talladega, will be Saturday at noon from Rocky Mount Baptist Church with Reverend Johnny F. McKinney officiating. Interment in the Sycamore Baptist Church Cemetery. Public viewing for Reverend Gross will be today, 3 till 7 o'clock at the funeral home. S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory directing. S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory, Talladega, announcing the funeral arrangements for Marilyn Glenn, age 57, who passed away January 27th. Homegoing celebration, remembering the life of Mr. Warren Lewis Jones, age 67, in Talladega, will be Saturday at noon from S.M. Goodson Funeral Home Chapel, with Archbishop Marshall L. Thomas officiating and the Reverend Benjamin Payne as the pulpit conductor. Interment in the Kelly Springs Memorial Gardens. Public viewing is today, 3 till 7 o'clock at the funeral home. S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory directing. In other obituary news this morning, Nelly L. Milam of Talladega died January 25th. Funeral service will be 2 o'clock today at Ursery Funeral Home in Talladega with Andy Thomas officiating. Burial in the Pine Hill Memorial Park. The family will receive friends at the funeral home from 1 until 2 today. Kelly Milam was a resident of Talladega. She's a graduate of Talladega High School, class of 1982. In lieu of flowers, donation can be sent to the New Hope Baptist Church, 950 17th Street in Talladega. Online condolences at urseryfuneralhome.com, Ursery Funeral Home directing. And homegoing celebration, remembering the life of Mrs. Margie L. Turner, age 82, of Munford, is Saturday at 2 o'clock from Kelly Springs Missionary Baptist Church with the Reverend L.L. Jacobs officiating. Interment in the Hall Grove Cemetery. Public viewing for Ms. Turner is today, 3 till 7 o'clock at the funeral home. S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory in Talladega in charge of the arrangements. That's a look at obituaries this morning, courtesy of Curtis & Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. For pre-need funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975, it's Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.